We're the crazy ones.
Are you one of the crazy ones? Do you aspire to be a successful entrepreneur? Then what qualities must you possess to be a successful entrepreneur? This is a highly debated question. I believe it all comes down to one quality. They all know how to execute. So join me as we meet crazy people that will share the story of their entrepreneurial journey. I hope you'll be inspired. If so, please subscribe.
You ain't gonna eat that, are you?
Yeah, I am. In this episode of An American Entrepreneur, we're going to a comic and collectibles show in Allen, Texas, which is about 26 miles north of Dallas. The show is called Investabilia, and it's held 4 times per year at this location. While checking out this show, I was hoping to find someone that will come on this channel and share their story, as well as give advice regarding the business of comics and collectibles. Luckily, I found a gentleman from San Antonio, Texas that was willing to come on. So come join me. I think you'll really enjoy this interview. Hello, Rick. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I appreciate you being willing to come on this channel. So tell us a little bit about what you do here.
We buy, sell, and trade comic books, mostly stuff from the 1960s up to more current issues. And we set up at Comic Cons, and this one is called Investabilia. This is the second time they've had this event here in Allen. We missed the first one, but it's always fun to come out and do these things.
So you drove up here from San Antonio, right?
Correct, yes.
How far is that from San Antonio to here?
San Antonio is about a 5-hour drive.
5-hour drive?
Yeah.
Okay, and this is a 2-day show, or 3, I guess?
3 days, yeah.
3
Started
days.
yesterday afternoon.
Giving me a tour of your booth here. I guess we can start over here.
Start over here. We've got the last 3 boxes are just dollar comics. Usually sell those for $1 a piece or 25 for 20. Then mixed in here is just more special covers, key issues, particular writers or artists, just regular price stuff. And it doesn't matter the age, so it could be from the 60s anywhere up through 2020 or 2021. Then we've got the CGC and CBCS graded comics. I usually keep these alphabetized. I'm constantly having to re-alphabetize.
Okay.
That's why the ones over there are generally not alphabetized.
Okay.
Up on the wall, we've got more of the graded books. Some of the newer stuff, 80s and 90s and more current, and then there's a row of the older ones from the 70s, a few from the 60s. This wall here, up to about half of this one, is stuff from the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, early 80s. And then from this point over, it's going to be stuff from the mid 80s up through more current stuff.
Show me again this point over. From there over.
Right here, over to the end of the other rack.
Okay. Where is the money as far as
in general
selling?
The older stuff, the Silver Age and Bronze Age, which is the 1960s and 70s, is going to be the more valuable stuff. But there are valuable comics from the 80s, 90s, and up to current. I mean, there's books that were produced in 2010 that are, just as an example, that are hundreds of dollars. So it just depends. And then we've got more priced stuff. Half price Silver Age and Bronze Age, again from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. This is just some random cheaper comics that I sell for $3 a piece. And then around here is modern stuff, which is the stuff from the mid 80s up through current stuff. And these I keep alphabetized, or I try to at least. And those are all half of the sticker price.
As far as the 80s stuff, what's really hot right now?
80s stuff, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is hot. Batman, the Death in the Family, Killing Joke, Dark Knight Returns. Those are some of the hotter things.
Show me a couple of these 80s hot.
And unfortunately, I don't have much right now. Some detective comics that are pretty popular. Todd McFarlane is the artist on this one and this one here. He created Spawn. So he worked at DC, then went to Marvel, had a really successful run on Spider-Man at Marvel, and then he became one of the founders of Image Comics. But this was some of his work with Batman.
Okay.
And he didn't do a whole lot of Batman, but everything he did with Batman is really popular.
All right, really cool. I love your display here. When you do these shows, I guess you have to bring all of your own display racks and everything, right? All you have is floor, and you bring your own tables, or you can rent tables, right?
They provide, most shows provide tables. You usually get one table per booth, and I've got two. So at this particular one, they don't provide any tables. You can rent them if you want to rent them. But I did bring some of my own.
I guess you come up here in a van or something,
Yeah,
or a big SUV.
I usually rent a cargo van from you.
A cargo van?
Yeah.
Okay, well that makes sense, I guess, yeah. Okay, well how did you get into these comic books? How did you discover them?
As a kid,
Okay.
read comics. My mom would buy me comics from the store. She probably started off with those Whitman 3-packs that had, like Pink Panther and some of the cartoony things, and then kind of gravitated more towards Marvel comics, Spider-Man, Werewolf by Night, Iron Man, those things. I read those as a kid and collected them up through middle school, and then I sold them all off and got into baseball cards later on, and then eventually made my way back into comics.
Is this your full-time
Yes, this
job
is
here?
my full-time job.
And I believe you said you did not have a brick and mortar, you only sell at shows?
Correct. No brick and mortar. I had a store back in the late 80s through the mid 90s in San Antonio, and then got out of it for a number of years and got back into it in around 2005.
If someone wanted to get in this as a business, what advice would you give them? What are some things you would tell them to avoid, and maybe some things they really should do?
Things to avoid is try to not get into all the speculation, all the hype over what character is hot right now or what book is hot right now. A lot of times people will jump in at that, and then prices will drop, after the speculation and the hype dies down, and so then they're automatically built in for a loss. So that would be my main piece of advice as far as what not to do. If you're going to open a store, make sure you're extremely well funded. It's
Right.
way different than when I had my store.
Oh, okay. Well, as far as doing a show as well, I guess it depends on the demographic of what city or town you go to. Some you can make some money, some you probably lose.
Definitely. There's been a few, especially this year. The market has changed a lot in the last year and a half.
Well, tell us about that. What is it? Has it gone down? Or?
Yeah, it has. I mean, things with after COVID, with all the free money that everyone was getting,
Right.
really drove up the prices on a lot of collectibles, comics, cards, Pokemon, you name it. Everything took a big jump in price. And then over the last year and a half, things have just started coming back down to where they were prior to COVID. So it's kind of, it seems like every time I turn around, something has dropped even a little bit more. But I kind of feel like we're close to the bottom, and hopefully start going back up here in the near future.
So it looks to me like really all you do is comic books, right? You don't do cards or anything like that.
I don't. My son will occasionally buy pops and paint, glow in the dark paint on them to customize them. So he's got those up there, but mainly just comics.
As far as comic books go too, first of all, I know nothing about them, but pretty much people don't buy buy them to read. It's really an investment type thing in the chase. And like I've got this one, I got 2 of these. You don't have one, I'll sell you one. It's a collectible thing.
It's gotten to be that way. I mean, there are still a lot of readers out there, and the Marvel movies have definitely brought in a lot of new faces, people that have weren't interested in comics at all before, and have seen the movies and gotten interested in the stories, and so they'll buy to read. But there's an awful lot of people out there that just buy for investment. A lot of things have gone towards what does the cover look like, and so they'll try to shoot for those iconic covers. And it doesn't really matter what the story is, just what does the cover look like.
And then I guess obviously condition's a really huge thing as well.
Yes, condition is a huge thing. It can, even just the slightest crease or ticks on the spine, if they break color, it can make a huge difference in the price.
As far as inventory goes, about how much money's worth of inventory would someone probably need to have to be able to come out and do a show like this and really have some good product where they can probably make some money?
I would say at a bare minimum, 20 to 30,000 worth of inventory.
And of course it depends too though on what you're buying. I get that too. Some comic books are, $5,000.
Yeah, I mean if you've got a lot of expensive books, I mean you can do pretty well with those. There's some of us that try to have a little bit of everything, so I've got stuff that ranges from $1 up to hundreds or thousands of dollars at different times. And then there's other people who just get one small little space and they've got a bunch of high dollar books. So, but those high dollar books are getting harder and harder to find. Buying collections.
What books around over here do you have that's like your pride and joy? Could you show it to me?
Sure. These are 2 of the better books that I have.
Could you hold it up, kind of?
That's a Giant Size X-Men #1. It's the first appearance of the new X-Men, kind of more along the lines of what people who watch the movies might be familiar with.
Okay.
This one, CBCS, which is a professional grading company, they're here on site today. They graded this at a 2.5 on the 10-point grading scale.
So that's pretty low, I guess, right?
It's a low grade. But the higher grades, you're talking 5 to 6 figures on the upper grades. And so like this one here, we've got it priced at $1,175.
Do people like to haggle a lot?
Yeah, I mean you do get some people that'll.
Well, why wouldn't you, right?
Yeah, I mean the worst somebody can say is no, but there's also sometimes you get people that come up and offer you half what you have on something, and obviously if you're paying for food and hotel and all the other expenses that you have doing this, you just can't do something like that.
Right.
Most vendors don't mind giving 5%, 10%, sometimes even 15% off, depending on what it is and maybe how much they have into it.
What show's the other one?
The other one is a Daredevil #1. So this one was the very first appearance of Daredevil when he wore his yellow and black suit. He switched over to the more familiar red suit in issue #7. This one came out in 1963 or 64. This one's also a low grade. CBCS also graded this one at a 1.8.
Do they charge you to grade your to grade your stuff?
On site, they're doing these raw grades for $10.
Okay.
They do offer that same service for mail-in, and then they also the more traditional grading is to put it in the plastic slab that it's pretty hard, and so to get a grade like this, in the slab, it's going to be a minimum of around $25, I believe, and then it goes up from there depending on the age of the comic and the value of the comic.
Well, one thing I've noticed that this one here sells for $140, and you've got it in that hard slab, but these are over $1,000 and you don't have it in a slab.
Yeah.
Why is that?
These are more recent acquisitions, and I haven't
You just
really
haven't done it
Yeah,
yet.
I haven't done
Okay,
it.
I thought.
I also try to balance my inventory on having stuff raw versus slab, because there's a lot more people would rather have the book where it's not in one of these than would like to have it in one of these.
So I guess when you go home, since you don't have a brick and mortar, you store all these in the house. I guess it's sensitive to the temperature. You can't like have them in the garage.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't leave them in the garage. So, climate controlled, keep them somewhere dark preferably, and where they're not going to get exposed to humidity. Those are, the light and humidity are two of the worst things. Obviously water is a good
Right,
thing,
yeah. Well, what is the name of your business again?
it is Rick's Comic Crypt.
And you're from?
We're from San Antonio, Texas, and we just do conventions mostly here in the state of Texas. We travel around, throughout the year. Probably do, 30 shows a year.
Do you have a website?
I do not. We do have an eBay store, and it's I shortened the name. It's just the letter R, Comic Crypt, all run together.
R Comic Crypt?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share, maybe to help give some insight to anyone that? Okay, here's a question.
Yeah.
What's some of your advice when it comes to renting a space and coming to a trade show? What do you look for? Like, do you want to get it at an end or middle, or what? Tell us a little bit about that.
For me personally, I prefer getting a corner, at least a corner booth, because then you've got more table space. But most conventions charge more for the corner spaces, and then there's also conventions where they won't let you get a corner space unless you buy a certain number of booths. Like some of the bigger fan expo shows, they won't let you get one corner unless you're buying 3 booths.
Well, how many square feet is this booth you've got?
These are 10 by 10 booths, so right here I've got 200 square feet.
200 square feet?
Yeah.
Okay. As far as comic books go, I guess you've got a lot of different themes. Like some people want Marvel comics, some people only, and I don't know, help me with this. Some people look at X-Men or...
Here in Texas, most people, there's a lot more Marvel collectors. I'm sure it's probably like that in other places as well. But here locally, there are way more Marvel collectors than there are DC. So your Spider-Man, X-Men, Avengers, those titles are a lot more popular than, say, Superman or Teen Titans. Batman's Batman. He's always popular, but as a whole, Marvel sells a lot better.
Okay. Well, if there were, say, a couple of comic books that you had dreamed to get your hands on, what would they be?
My number one, I'd really like to have an Amazing Fantasy 15, which is the first appearance of Spider-Man. It came out in 1963. It had a 12-cent cover price, and now, depending on the grade, you're talking minimum of 10,000.
Do you ever see any of those around, or you probably don't see many of them around?
I see them occasionally, but it's very, very few. Most of the time I see them online.
If you had one, what would it go for today, if it was the condition, that a normal condition?
Well, I'd say back in the 90s, I had someone come in my store with one. It had a big chunk off of the front cover about here, and at that time, a copy like that would go for about $1,000. Now, a copy like that probably 15 grand.
Darn, 15 grand.
Yeah.
So that copy too, though, fluctuates in price as well, right?
It does,
you may put 15 grand in it, and a year from now, maybe worth 10.
It could be.
Of course, you just have to hang on to it.
It could be. Although, there's not near as much fluctuation in those big blue chip comics as there are in a lot of other things. The X-Men one, giant size X-Men one, over the past couple of years, there's been a lot of fluctuations in those just because of the economy and rumors about X-Men coming to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So they jumped up really high, and then they've come back down a lot.
Well, one last question, I guess. If somebody was going to be a new collector, let's say I came here and I thought, I'd like to get into this. What are some things I could do to really help me learn?
I would say the best thing is to pick a character that you really like, start reading those. Start reading. Reading is the number one.
I love Batman.
So I'd buy some Batmans. Maybe start out with a graphic novel, which the graphic novels are compilations of storylines. They're usually 6 issues worth of regular comic books, and cover prices on those range from about $15 to $30, depending on how many issues are included. And that'll give you a whole story. So that'll kind of get you to where you know what some of the stories are and can branch off buying individual comics from there.
Okay. This might be a personal question, and don't answer it. But when you go do all these shows, I know, like I mentioned, sometimes you make money, sometimes you lose money.
Yes.
Could you give us a range of sometimes what you can lose and then sometimes what you can make? Is that an okay question?
Sure. I mean, there are some shows where you probably do just enough in sales to cover the cost of the booth, and maybe you don't cover your hotel or your travel expenses. There's other shows where you might walk away with a $3,000, $5,000 profit.
After all your expenses
after
and
all your
everything.
expenses, yeah. But then you also have to figure in the cost of what you sold as well.
Okay, your cost of what you have into it.
Yeah.
Well, how do you keep track of that? Do you actually have each item listed in an inventory? Do you know what you paid for it?
When you get this many comics, it's really
almost
hard
impossible,
to know exactly
yeah.
what you paid for each one. So just kind of ballpark it on
The best you can, best estimate.
Yeah.
Yeah, not that I'm an expert on this at all, but I guess, well, you can't put a sticker on it, but I was thinking about like UPC code or something, computerize it.
There are some like mostly stores that have gone to barcodes.
Right.
So they've got a POS system in their store, and they barcode most everything. So I would imagine that those stores have a better way to keep track of what they've got into things.
Yeah.
For me, I'm a one-man operation, so you've got a limited amount of time.
Well, as far as payment methods, what are your payment methods?
We do cash, cards, credit cards, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App,
Okay.
kind of Zelle even. We do pretty much all the payment methods.
How long have you been doing this now? Quite a long time, right?
Yeah, I've been doing conventions since about 2004, 2005.
I think for the third time, this is the last question. What do you know now that you wish you knew years ago in doing this?
Don't overcommit. Don't buy things thinking that it's going to be a quick sale, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to hang on to it for a while.
Okay. Don't buy things you like as well. I guess buy what people like or you think they like.
On the one hand, buy things you like, because at least, if it doesn't sell, at least you like it. And then on the other hand, you can tend to buy things you like and maybe nobody else does.
Well, is there a place you can go to do research and due diligence to understand what's selling for what?
Best places are eBay is a good resource, and make sure that you look at the completed sales. That way you can see what's sold and for how much, or if something didn't sell, you can see, maybe there was one copy that actually sold and there's 100 copies that went unsold. So that gives you a better idea of, rather than just looking at sold items, because then you'll see everything that's sold. You won't see all the things that didn't sell.
Okay.
So that's a good resource. And for the graded comics, there's a website called GPA Analysis or GP Analysis. People just refer it to GPA for short. It's a subscription-based service that runs about $10 or $11 a month, or you can pay for a year. But it tracks the sales from a number of websites, including eBay, on just CGC, which is a company that's based in Florida. The CBCS, this one here, is based here in Texas, in the Dallas area.
Okay. So basically that's how you really do your due diligence and know what you're buying and knowing what not to buy and how much, so you don't really get, ripped off or whatever. Buy intelligently.
Correct.
Okay. Well, Rick. Okay. Rick, thanks a lot for sharing your story. I appreciate it a whole lot. And have a great day.
No problem. You too.
All right. Bye now. The biggest takeaway Rick shared with us is how he can run his business without cataloging all his inventory costs. He knows approximately what he paid for his inventory. However, there are some really small barcode, or shall I say point of sale systems for small businesses, and you'll be very surprised how easy they are to use. Also, Rick does about 30 shows per year in the state of Texas. So if you think you might want to open up a brick and mortar comic and collectible store, you may consider doing some shows to gain some experience before committing to a lease. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video and it added value. I'm Curtis Mohlberg. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.